Okay. We'll be back a week from today. No, for a wedding. The Baders, remember Ian Bader? Remember the Baders, architects? Ian Bader, South Africans, many years ago they were involved here. So their daughter was married. They went to the wedding. Okay. We're holding in the Mishnah right before Samachay, right before the Mishnah. We had an argument between Reb Meir and Reb Yossi. If a person uses a term which is ambiguous, does a person allow himself, although it has normally this unclear meaning, when a person makes that statement where it has a consequence, does he allow himself to enter into a situation where it creates a complication, or he's very specific? So Reb Yossi says, so therefore, the example was Hagadola. Hagadola in Hebrew could either mean the eldest or the elder. So when you have two groups of daughters, and you say the Hagadola, what did you mean? Did you mean all the daughters except the youngest? Or did it mean the eldest? The elder. Okay, and Russian, I don't know how to say it. Okay, right? There's no cheses or hays. There's no hays, right? Okay. Okay, there's no ha. Okay. Okay. Could be the to exclude the youngest. The elder. Elder, not eldest. Right? Okay. Reb Meir says no. When a person speaks, even where there could be serious consequences, he speaks in this unclear manner, and he doesn't mean something very specific. That's the machlokes Reb Meir and Reb Yossi. So Mar asked the stira, we have a contradiction, because we had a machlokes. A person noder ala Pesach. A person makes a neder, and he says the neder is in effect until Pnei Pesach. That's the term, the face of Pesach. Does it mean before Pesach or after Pesach passes? So over here, Abayat said that the argument Reb Meir and Reb Yossi is only where you have two groups of daughters. Two groups of daughters. But if you have one group, then what would we say? Elder means the eldest, and younger means the youngest, because the middle daughter he would identify by name. So the Gemara asks on Abaye, so we have an argument by Pnei Pesach, doesn't mean before Pesach, doesn't mean after Pesach. So we have a question. If you speak about the days of Pesach, what is that? That's the equivalent of one group of daughters. So if it's equivalent of one group of daughters, what do we have in Machlokes Reb Meir and Reb Yossi? What did he mean? Did he mean the beginning? Did he mean the end? Right? So seemingly, Reb Meir holds what's the reason why every day of Pesach is not permitted. So we explained earlier, because every day of Pesach precedes the next day of Pesach. So there's a certain ambiguity there, and since it's unclear, according to Reb Meir, we have to be machmir in regard to Nedarim. But according to Rava, that Abai said that when you're dealing with one group, even Reb Meir agrees that it means either it means before or after. So what relevance does this have to this machlokes? So on that the Gemara says, let's see. Amalei Rafuna Breder Reb Yeshua the Rava ha Pesach kikat achas tomik. Pesach, the case of by neder of Pesach, it's like one group. Upligi, and we find in machlokes Reb Yossi and Reb Meir. Right? When does the neder, to what degree does it extend itself? It is only before Pesach or even through Pesach? Omalei, he says no. Hasam Belishan Dalma Commission. There they're arguing, even in the vernacular, what does Pnei mean? You know, in Hebrew, Lefanos, right? Or Pona Yom, right? We say it by Nilo. Nilo. We say Pona Yom, the day is left. Right? Lefanos means to clear. It's left. So does Pnei mean after the Yom Tov is over? That's Pnei, or Pnei means the face. That's the argument. It's not because there's an ambiguity to it. What does Pnei mean when people speak? Does it mean when you approach, when you face, or Pnei means when it's been nifne, when the Yom Tov has passed? Marsav ad Pnei ad kami pischo. Reb Yossi is of the opinion, what does Pnei mean? Kame, the face, when you approach Pesach. So when does the neder come to an end? It means be up to Pesach. Reb Meir said ad de mifnei pischo. When Pesach actually, it's been fully removed. That means after Pesach. Okay, start the next mission. Has no relevance to our previous discussion. Okay. Now we're going to discuss the concept of Shaveh Nafshcha Chaticha D'Isura. We discussed it earlier, correct? That if a person says, you have 100 witnesses saying a piece of meat is kosher, and the person says, I believe this meat is not kosher, so the halacha is he's bound to what he says. Although everybody's permitted to eat the meat, he's not permitted to eat the meat, because he established that object, that substance, that object, as an object of Isur, of something that's not permitted. So let's say the Torah says, Al pi shnayim medim yakun davar. Torah says, Ein davar shebe'er v'pos mishnayim. That regarding any forbidden status of a person, you need two witnesses to establish that status. A woman says, I'm a married woman. She has no proof she was ever married. She can't bring witnesses. Nobody ever recalls it. What is her status? She says, I'm married. She herself. But you have witnesses saying it's impossible she's married. She's been on this desert island for 40 years. How could she be married? And she was born on the desert island. Nobody's approaching the desert island. All that was on desert island were natives, which don't qualify to be witnesses. How could she be married? If she says, I'm a married woman, regarding her own situation, she's not permitted. She has to conduct herself as she's a married woman. That's Shaveh Nafshcha Chaticha D'Isura. A person is able to establish himself based on his statement, and he's bound by that statement. So we discussed, is it a netter? Does it have a netter status? Like a person can make a netter, something's permitted, but yet it's off limits to him? Is that the concept? Well, no. There's a Gzeres HaKosov that regarding one's own personal predicament, as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else, you have a right to establish whatever you choose to establish. Whether it's to obligate you in a monetary payment, or it's to restrict you in any area of your life, that's a right you have. He'd be in violation of the. He's causing her to sin. He's not sinning, but he's causing her to sin. So, I mean, he's doing the wrong thing.
Why is he not sinning? He's sinning since he's in relationship with a married woman.
She's not married.
Well, she's married according to her.
According to her, she's married, right? She's married.
So the man...
Let me ask her, if she commits adultery, according to what are you going to put her to death? Definitely not. Right? Because, again, the basis to believe her is only in regard to herself. That's only to restrict her. We treat her like a married woman, and in reality, she's not a married woman. See, the question is, what, based on the understanding, will determine what is the rationale. If it's a netter, it's true. What is a netter? A netter is restriction. It's prohibition. You give it a forbidden status. But if it's belief, like we said, Hodos Baldin K'meidim Dami, that actually you believe the person to obligate you. Let's say, I owe someone. I say in front of two witnesses. I go on record to say, firstly, I owe somebody money. It means nothing, because the person could say he's just joking. But let's say a person says, I go on record, he gets two witnesses, I go on record in your presence and say I owe so-and-so $1,000. The person owes that person $1,000. And the person has a right to make a claim against him for the $1,000 based on that statement. Why? So also there's an argument. What exactly is the basis for that obligation? Is it just you obligated yourself, or you actually believe him? You believe him that he owes him $1,000 for whatever reason. He borrowed money or whatever reason. It's not believed. Yes. Correct. For the one who testifies, it would be for him it's Shaveh Nafshcha D'Isura. Well, that's the question. So the question is, do I draw it from Hodos Baldin? The Torah says by Moda B'Miktzas, when a person makes a partial admission, he has to swear. What does he have to swear? It's the question. What does he have to swear? You say, you owe me 1,000. I say, I owe you 100. So what do you swear? So there's an argument in Rishonim that when I admit I owe you 1,000, 100, I'm giving credence to your claim. Okay? Am I really giving? But if that's the basis for Hodos Baldin. My admission binds me financially. If you say you believed, so factually I'm giving credence to what you're saying. That I truly owe you money. So if I owe you, so maybe as I owe you 100, maybe I owe you 1,000. So I have to swear that the degree of obligation is only 100, not more than 100. Wait. No, if you deny it, you don't have to swear. Torah says it's only, you need a partial admission to bring about the obligation to swear, the oath. No, but you have to understand what we call the lumdus. What is the rationale of swearing when you make a partial admission? Is it because I'm giving credence to what you're saying? So what's credence? If I say Hodos Baldin is, I don't believe you. You actually borrowed. Has nothing to do with his claim. You just admit that you owe money. That's what we call his chayvus. You obligated yourself. Based on your statement, you have to pay. Does it have anything to do with his claim? It has nothing to do with his claim. So what do you have to swear? So therefore, the Ktos HaChoshen says, when you admit, when Torah says ki uzeh, when you make that partial admission, you're giving credence. You're saying, I don't owe you 1,000, I owe you 100. But I'm giving validity that you have a claim against me. So once that creates a question in our minds. Just as you're giving credence to his claim, maybe the full claim is a valid claim. Therefore, so how do you establish and put a limitation on that? By swearing. Okay? But if it's just, I obligate myself, it's chayvus. You want to obligate, so but in truth we don't believe you. What does that have to do with the man making the claim? It has nothing to do with the man making the claim. Okay? So therefore, if you draw it from anything which puts any level of obligation on you, you believe a person. But what pertains to yourself, so if that's the case, same thing, I go to Isser. I say this piece of meat is not permitted to me. Again, I'm restricting myself. I have something which was available to me, it's no longer available to me. That's what I draw from Hodos Baldin. But if you say it's his chayvus, it's just I obligate myself to pay. But it's not I really believe you. So if that's the case, that maybe it's only by financial obligation. We learn from Kiuzeh. What does that have to do with saying the piece of meat is not kosher? Therefore, the other thing, that's a netter. It's like making a netter. Saying the meat is off limits to me, it's the equivalent of a netter. You established it as a netter, as it's off limits to you.
If a person partially acknowledges the guilt, it's not 1,000, it's 100.
Correct.
We have two things going on. That person's statement and the claimant saying you owe me. But in this particular case, where the person just
Wait. Let's first talk about that. Wait, no, again. I'm not talking about the oath. What is the basis to swear, to take the shvua, the oath?
in which case?
By partial admission.
Because you've got two sides.
Wait. But why? Why when I admit... No, I understand that, but what is the Torah saying? Why when I admit to part of the claim, why do I have to swear? Let's see, the basis for my admission, I don't give any credence to your claim. Why should I have to swear? Wait a second. But you have to, Torah says you have to pay. The answer is because when you say I owe 100, I'm saying what you're saying is true, but it's not to the degree that you're claiming.
It's a partial verification.
So that creates, by us, it creates a question in our minds, just as he's admitting that this is valid, the claim is a valid claim, to this degree, maybe the full claim is a valid claim. So how do you extricate yourself from that question? Right? You take an oath, you take a shvur. But in essence, what is Torah saying? Regarding your person, anything you say which infringes on your rights and binds you or limits you and restricts you, you're believed. Right? That's motive b'miktzas. That's partial admission. That's what it's saying. Do we have witnesses saying that he owes the money? No. Your own admission is sufficient to say we believe you because it pertains to your own self. So let's shift over to a piece of meat. The world says something's kosher. There's no basis to say it's not kosher. I say it's not kosher. Let me give you a case. Very interesting. They don't clash. You don't need a claimant there. You don't need anybody making a claim. Let's say a person didn't make a claim against him. I go on rec, say, I owe you $200. Do I believe the person? You do believe him. That's Hodos Baldin. That's what I draw from Motiv Miktas. I go on rec, say I owe so-and-so $100, I have to pay him $100. How do we see that? Because by partial admission, when a man admits that he owes so much money, we believe the man. So just as you believe him there, you say, but there's a claimant. Here, there's nobody making the claim. This is only you initiated it yourself. Doesn't make a difference. But what do I see there? What is the basis this way? It has nothing to do with the claimant. It's because I admitted to the partial claim that obligates me to swear. Of course, if he doesn't make the claim, there's no reason for me to admit. But factually, I do admit. So why am I believed? Because I'm admitting. So you see, regarding my own obligation, I'm believed. So the Ktsos understands that that's the same rationale regarding Shav Nashchati Chli. If I say something's not permitted to me, although the whole world says it is permitted, it's irrelevant what the world says. Because this pertains to myself. Let's talk about a case like this. If a person says, you owe me $100, okay? And I say, I never borrowed. He says, I lent you. He says, I never borrowed. Never borrowed from you. Now, the man brings two witnesses and say, Lova upora. Yeah, the story. The lender says, what do you mean never borrowed? I have witnesses say, you borrowed. So let's say the witness just said he borrowed. It's understood he has to pay. What about the witness say more than, he says he borrowed and he paid. Does he have to pay? And he repaid. He borrowed and we saw he repaid that loan. Does he have to pay? He says, I never borrowed. So the halacha is he has to pay. Because if you never borrowed, that means you couldn't have paid. So therefore, even though the witnesses said he paid, the basis for the obligation is the witnesses. Correct? They said he borrowed. But they said he paid. But since this is, the whole world says it's kosher. The whole world says you owe no money. I say I do owe money. Because if you never borrowed, how did you pay? But you have witnesses. It's relevant. I'm countering the witnesses. Because I'm saying I never borrowed. So if you never borrowed, you never paid. That's the equivalent. Regarding your own, that's equivalent. You admit that you owe. Because you're saying, in essence, why don't I owe? Because I never borrowed. But if you could prove to me I did borrow, then I do owe you. But you have witnesses saying, countering what your admission, it's irrelevant. If you say you owe, the witnesses become irrelevant. Yeah, David. To the piece of meat.
In the case of the piece of meat, it's a flash. The world is saying it's kosher. And this person is saying it's not.
You have 1,000 witnesses saying he borrowed and paid.
No, just borrowed.
No, the witness saying borrowed and paid.
I understand that because it sounds like we split the testimony in two.
It's not no, but it's not because
We've seen that you split the testimony in two.
it's different. That's different. No, that's for a different reason. That's for a different reason. That's for a different reason. Different reason. There it's because the Meismatzmo Rosha. A person cannot incriminate himself. Right? The person says he consented to sodomy. Right? And then we want that his testimony should join with another single witness to convict the sodomizer. That's Palgin Dibura. I come to court with another person, Ploni Ravani Luritzoni. Right? So-and-so sodomized me and I consented. So the moment you say that, you've disqualified yourself. Right? So you know something, but the court doesn't even hear it. The court says, that part of your testimony we can't accept. We can't accept it. So what does the court? So, as I said, it's two separate testimonies. So-and-so committed sodomy. Who he committed with, it's irrelevant. Sodomy means he had sexual relations with a person of the same gender. That's what they said. So that testimony stands independent of who the victim was. The victim is irrelevant. That's Palgin Dibura. We split the testimony. This has nothing to do with splitting testimony.
Because they said two things, these witnesses.
Here the witness also said two things. They said he borrowed and he paid. Over there also they said there's a sodomizer and there's a person who was sodomized. Same thing. But over there, why don't they accept the part of the testimony when the man says, I consented? There the court doesn't accept it. They don't accept it. Here the court accepts the testimony. He borrowed and he paid. But if you say that you owe, you still owe.
Well, it sounds like technically the court doesn't accept the condemning testimony of a single witness. Because
It could be 1,000 witnesses. Yeah, because Ein Odom Eis Matzah Rosha. Odom Koravetz Alatzmo. Two things. A person is related to himself, and therefore you're not believed to disqualify yourself.
Okay, so that has got nothing to do with that.
That's why over there we split the testimony. The court doesn't even hear the testimony of the man saying, I...
But that aspect doesn't have anything to do with this particular situation.
Exactly, but you're speaking about splitting testimony. That's why I said it doesn't have. I'm agreeing with you. It has nothing to do with our situation. You're asking, you find you split testimony. I'm saying that this is not splitting testimony. That's
But these witnesses did say two things.
They said he borrowed and he paid.
So
But you said you never borrowed. So if you never borrowed based on your statement,
it's a contradiction.
if you never borrowed, that means you never paid. That means you owe the money. No, you're not believing them because Adam Neman is Neman Yosem Me'edim. Hodos Baldin is Yosem Me'edim. So therefore you believe that you owe. Regarding your own personal obligation.
Because he's also saying that he never borrowed.
Doesn't make a difference. But when you said you never borrowed, why are you saying, if in fact I did borrow, I owe you? But if I claim I never borrowed. So if you bring proof that I did borrow, I'm saying I owe. That's all we have to need. The witness is himself. That's Hodos Baldin. That's Hodos Baldin can made him dummy.
When he says he didn't borrow, that's not how he does it.
No, that's not Hodos. That's a denial. Right, correct.
If the witnesses say, the only thing the witnesses say is the loan was repaid, and the borrower says, I didn't repay.
But he agreed that he borrowed.
No, there's no question about that. I borrowed.
But over here, that's not our case.
No,
Says, of course, it's a Kolsh game. It's a Kolsh game.
The man says,
It's a Kal V'chomer. It's a Kal V'chomer.
he has to pay.
Of course, he has to pay.
Right. So we don't listen to the witnesses.
Correct.
We listen to the man.
Because anything relating to your own personal financial obligation, your statement takes precedence over witnesses. That's what Torah says.
It's not that we don't believe the witnesses.
We said the Torah says
Witnesses are kosher.
the kosher witness is not in question. Regarding your own personal obligation, your statement trumps the witnesses. That's it. That's it. That's all the Torah says.
That's what it is.
That's exactly. They're not lying. We're not saying the witness. Every other Jew can eat that meat.
Can he say, I thought it wasn't, and then go according to what?
No, I'm not talking about it. Could he retract afterwards? That's the question. That's the question. He made a mistake. That's called damaslo. Do we allow him? Do we believe what he's saying is not? Don't we believe? Okay, I just want to just give me a very vague background on this. It's Machlokes the Ketzos and the Maran Leib. Okay.
Excuse me. Going back to the meat. Of course, the opposite is if the whole world says this meat is not kosher, and the man says no, it is kosher, I can eat it. He's not.
Of course, he's not permitted to eat it.
Permitted.
You have witnesses saying it's not kosher. Right. Good. That's Eidim. Okay, Omer leisha kidashtich. A man says to a woman, I married you. Comes out of the blue, he says, I married you. He omeres lo kidashtoni. She says, I never saw you before my life. You never who asa bikrovoseo, the muteres bikrovov. The moment he says, I married you, he's not permitted in all her relatives, her mother, her sister, and so on and so forth. Why? Based on principle Shav Nafshech Yisura. If you establish her as your wife, vis-a-vis yourself, whatever the ramifications of that is, those are the ramifications. He omeres kidashtoni. What about if she says, you married me? V'omer lo kidashtich. He says, I never saw you before. Never married you. Hu muter b'krovosel. He's permitted in her relatives. He can marry her sister. Her mother, v'yasur b'krovov. But she's not permitted to marry his brother, his children, his son, or whatever it may be. The Gemara asked the question. Okay? See, you're thinking straight. Okay? The Gemara asked that question. Kidashtich. What about he says to her, I married you? V'omeres lo kidashto elobiti. She says, it's not me, but you married my daughter. My daughter. Who also bekrovas gedolo. So, he says, I married you. He said, I married you. So we're referring to the mother as the gedola. He's not permitted in the relatives of the adult. Ugedola muteres bekrovav. But since she says, I'm not your wife, she's permitted in his relatives. The adult. Who muter bekrovos ketano. He's permitted to the relatives of the minor. Uktana muteres bekrovav. And the minor is permitted in his relatives. We're referring to the daughter. Minor. She's not the younger. Kidashti is bitcho. Kidashti is bitoch. He says no. He says directly, I married your daughter. V'omeres lo kidasht to el osi. It's not my daughter, it was me. Giving all the variations. Okay? You realize it was Purim. It was Purim. Okay. We're speaking about, was it a walled city or is it an open city? Okay. Who also bekrovis ketano. Since he says his shavnash, he established the daughter as his wife. So also bekrovis ketano, he's forbidden the relatives of the younger one. So let's say it would be achos isha, the sister of the girl. Uktana muteres bekrova, but the younger one is permitted his relatives. Who muter bekrovas gedola, he's permitted in the relatives of the older one. Ugedola asur bekrova. Gemara's going to ask, what do we need all these cases? I mean, to a certain point, the others are totally superfluous, the Gemara's going to say. Okay, let's start. Shavyo nafsho. He's mash in Hebrew. Shavyo is Aramaic. Mashver. Who mashver chaticho di isura. He's establishing it as something which is forbidden to him. The shavyo nafsho chaticho di isura. We'll see Rashi in a moment. He says the language. Take a look in Rashi. Who also bekrovoseh the shavinu alei chaticho di isura bodoso. See Rashi. He's establishing it as an object of Yisur through his admission. By saying, I married you, that he's established. We have no witness, we have no basis, except his own admission. His admission is sufficient to establish it that she's forbidden to him.
If she says that you didn't marry me, but you married my daughter, she can't marry.
What again, she says?
She says, he says...
Yeah, but we're not talking about him, we're talking about his relatives.
Right.
Could she marry his brother? She can marry his brother.
Anyone.
That's his. That would have been right.
The
Correct. I'm going to pull it out. Okay, let's see the Gemara. So we start off like this. He says, "I married you." She says, "You didn't marry me." Then we have to get. She says, "You married me." He says, "I never married you." I mean, once we already say, he's not believed, why should I consider that she should believe more than he should be believed? If the basis, you have to have minimally two witnesses to believe a person, right? And the basis, Shavnash Chetri Disura, we said, when he says, I married you, we say he's forbidden her relative, she's not permitted in his. So when she says, I married you, she's forbidden his relative, he's not forbidden her relatives. Saying the same thing. What is the second case adding to the first case? That's the Gemara's question. Homalisha Kitashtich. Utsricho. We need both cases. Both cases in this. The beg, the day. Let's say he would say, regarding himself, I married you, and then we say he's forbidden her relatives, but she's permitted his relatives. Bishum digavro lo ichpaslei. Umikri Omar. Listen, man, as they say, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Even if it's his wife, there are plenty of other women he can marry. So therefore, we don't give full value to his statement. Therefore, we believe him. Therefore, we say it doesn't infringe on her. I say the reason why it doesn't infringe on him because there's reason to question the validity of your statement, right? Because you can make such a statement that what? Why? Because even though her relatives are not permitted to you, but you can marry many other women. But if she says, I'm married to you, what is that statement? What's the consequence? What's the ramification of that statement? She can't marry anybody. So there's almost like an anansari. No one in his right mind is to make that statement unless it's true. So maybe that should bind him and limit him regarding her relatives. So the second statement is a chidush. The first statement, the reason why she's permitted to his brother or his relatives, because that statement can't be taken fully seriously, because it doesn't have the consequence of her statement. Therefore, she's permitted. But what if she says, "I'm your wife"? When a woman says that, makes that kind of statement, that means she's prohibiting herself to the whole world. So maybe we should give greater value to that statement, and we should not allow him to marry her relatives, her sister. The Mishnah tells us no, it has no value other than herself. That's the chiddush of the second statement over the first statement. That's lo zuavzu. That's always that way. Correct, but that's always the way he presents something. First A, then B. Not only this, even that. That's the way the Tana always presents something.
After
Rabbeinu Tam, okay.
the man will have the same restriction. He could only marry one woman.
You better take a history course. Relearn it. It's Rabbeinu Gershom.
I'm sorry, Rabbeinu Gershom, yes. So
Okay.
the men would be...
Okay.
The men would be also obligated the same way as the women.
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Okay. Okay. First, it's rabbinical Torah. Secondly, it is a hetemei rabbanon, which has no relevance to a woman, has a relevance to a man. Right? You get 100 rabbis to sign on a document that the relationship is not workable because the woman's unstable. He can marry another woman. Her husband becomes unstable, she's locked in for the rest of her life. Okay? So her statement is a much more serious statement than his statement. Okay?
No way that you would ever think that you're going to impose something like that. She said, I married you. Okay, yes, a woman has fewer choices than a man. Why should I...
She has no choice. She has no choice.
Yeah, why should I ever limit that man? It's just one witness.
It's not even one witness. No,
I don't even pay attention.
No, you'd say it. It's
She said nothing.
we have a principle known as Anan Sadi. I'll give you an example. The Gemara says in Shavuos, a person says, Lo visiu parati. Person says, I borrowed and I paid. Right? He admits, I borrowed and I paid. And the lender says, you never paid. You have to take a rabbinic oath. Why? Because if you admitted you paid, you borrowed, now it's a question, did you pay? And especially the lender says you didn't pay. What about a person, there's no basis that he even ever borrowed? And a person comes and says, I lent you money. He says, I never saw you before in my life. This is a question, does he have to take a rabbinic oath? Wait a second. That's what the two versions in the Gemara in Shavuos. One version is he doesn't have to. If he admits he borrowed, so he admits there was an obligation, now it's a question, did he absolve himself of that obligation? And the lender says he never did, so that's the basis to swear. But if there's not a basis for that there was ever an obligation, just the claim of the lender is not a rabbinic oath. The other version is no, he has to swear. Why? Because we have a principle, ein adam tovei on ken yesh lo. Person doesn't make a claim unless there's a basis of claim. You know what level of insolence you need? You approach a person, you have so you owe me money. Person doesn't have that degree of chutzpah to come and say to a person you owe when he knows he doesn't owe you. So evidently, so that causes us to question maybe there is a basis. No, he's Kofer HaKol. Kofer Beaker or somebody else. It's Kofer HaKol. Doesn't make a difference. He says, I never saw you before. But we have a principle, Ein Adam Tovei Ken Yesh Lo. Person doesn't make a claim unless there's a basis for a claim. So that causes us to say, you know something, we have to resolve it. Therefore, we impose the oath. So I'm saying the same thing over here. We're saying over here, a woman where, by making this statement, she prohibits everybody in the world on herself, maybe, I'm not saying it's no rights necessarily, we should not allow him to marry her relatives. I mean, that's the degree of infringement, rabbinically, because a person doesn't only make this kind of claim, where it has this level of consequence. So maybe we should give it sufficient value. We should not allow him to marry her relatives, her sister. The answer is we give it no credence, no value whatsoever. It's nonsense. No, because there's no ramification. You don't need this meat, you need other meat. Here, she's not permitted to any man in the world. If she says, you're my husband, that means every man in the world is off limits to her. No. No, but here it is an anatsadi aspect. By neder, there's no anatsadi aspect. We could all attest, nobody in his right mind would make this statement unless it may have some truth to it. That's the difference. I see. I've had influence on David all these years. No. Harayat Mugdeshesli. No, he says, I never saw you before in my life. It's not they were dating. Okay?
Or you can claim the same thing about the man. He may also hear more than
No.
Maybe in France.
Okay. Okay. Avadi ema lo. Aval ema ilab de kim lo b'dibura. If a woman wouldn't be sure in terms of her words, lo havas omro, v'litz iu b'krovaseo, and therefore we should prohibit him and her relatives only to that degree. Kamash malon. So that's the Mishnah is telling us we give no value, no credence to that statement whatsoever. I'll tell you, today things have changed. Today you have what we call a frivolous lawsuit. Continuously. People, today people, for the sake of whatever it is, you just pay me off just to disappear. So people today, and it's unfortunately, it's so common, people have no conscience. And exactly.
And that's not related to halacha.
No, I'm talking about in the terms of swearing, where a man, even though there's no background on that he's a borrower, nevertheless. Okay. Right. Okay. Kidashtich v'yomeris. He says, I married you. And she says, no, it's not me, it's my daughter. You married my daughter. Hasu lamali. Now it's interesting. A father is believed to say he married off his minor daughter. What about a mother? Torah says no. A daughter is not in jurisdiction of a mother, but she's in the jurisdiction of father. But you would think maybe rabbinically. A midoraisa is beaten sadlish, that's the father. But maybe rabbinically, we would say the mother also would be, she's in the jurisdiction of, again, a mother rabbinically can marry off a daughter, correct? Rabbinically, definitely. I mean, she can be mine, she can walk out on that marriage, right? For the sake of protecting the minor daughter, a mother or the brothers can marry her off. No, but she's not believed. A father's beliefs, I married off my daughter. Right? The Torah gives him that right, and he's believed. So we would think, so when the... Again, she's saying, he says, I married you. No, he's forbidden her relatives. She says, no, it's my daughter, it's not me. So maybe the daughter should be forbidden rabbinically, because you give value rabbinically to her statement. We will continue.